It's time once again for more FoodSpace. All things food and drink, restaurants, travel, recipes, and cooking tips. There's something for everyone. Taste, sip, learn, and laugh along with us. And now it's time to get into his space, FoodSpace. Here's your host, Chef Michael Glatz.
Hello and welcome to FoodSpace. Always a pleasure to have you join us here in the studio. Hashtag expand your palate. That's what we do here at FoodSpace. We teach you to taste. We teach you to just enjoy different things and hopefully learn and laugh and have a little fun along the way. Have you ever been called the salt of the earth? Do you take life with a grain of salt? Well, today's a good show for you because we're going to talk about salt. And joining me in the studio today is Dane Salmons. I'm sorry,
Salmons.
Dane.
Yep, you're close.
Right? Close. And my good friend Nancy Heinrich. We all know Nancy from Pop-Up Health, but she's here today joining us on the show today. I had her come in because I thought, you know, salt is not only delicious and fun and really enhances our food, but there are some health advantages and disadvantages to salt. So I thought it was great to have Nancy on the show today. So welcome to you both.
Hi, Thank you.
Thank
right?
you.
It's a growing category, this salt thing, huh? Gosh, when I was a kid, my mom had the little canister of salt with a little spout on it, and that was salt, right?
Morton salt. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
The girl with the
umbrella.
Yeah.
There you go. Right now, you're too young for that, Dane.
I actually do remember the Morton salt. So.
And I feel like for most of my life, salt is like the devil. It's been the evil. There's been so much stuff said negatively about salt. Our doctors tell us not to eat it. We see it on TV, we read about it, and so on. And salt was at one time very celebrated. It's one of the most celebrated elements of the earth. I mean, there's evidence of salt being processed 8,000 years ago in what we now know as Romania, where they were boiling water from these salty ponds. And it's been the cause of wars. It's been currency, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It's been used as a preservative.
Mm-hmm.
It's really enjoyed some great times in history. And certainly in the earlier part of my life, it's been kind of like salt. But it's kind of fun to see our generation having fun with salt again, as we're obsessed with learning more about food. Where does it come from? What can we do with it? You know, how can we change it? And, you know, and of course, make money with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of great salts out there. I even saw a salt store, retail store. You can certainly go online. Just Google salt, and there's some ways to have some fun with it. So, as a chef, I probably have my Morton or Diamond Crystal salt at home, or my kosher salt, just generic stuff that I'll season water with. If I'm cooking vegetables or pasta or something like that, I'm making a salt crust on a piece of fish or a whole chicken. I don't want to spend money because some of these salts can be very expensive. I don't want to spend that kind of money just to make a salt crust or salty water. But today we're going to taste a couple of different types of salts from different parts of the world. So, Nancy, this is where your expertise comes in a little bit. Also, salt is sodium chloride, and all salt comes from the sea,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's really funny because we put a big emphasis on sea salt. But at one time, even the mined salts, I think of the Bonneville Salt Flats out in Utah, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was dried up lakes where the salt just ended up into the earth. And so now they mine the salt out. They, of course, it's refined. They have to treat it, remove any chemicals or things that are in it. They add anti-caking properties to it. I always like that. Added anti-caking property added. What is that? Anyhow.
So it doesn't stick together.
Yeah, I know, but what is that anti-caking property?
I don't know.
You know?
Buyer beware.
I just had my birthday. I could have used a little anti-caking property. I think I overdid on the cake a little bit. But anyhow, back to salt. So, so all salt really came from the sea at one point. But these sea salts that we're seeing, all different types of crystals and shapes, are really kind of fun. And the more expensive ones are because they're done oftentimes just naturally. I've been to the salt flats in Cabo Rojo, Puerto Rico, and the water just evaporates, leaving the salt behind. It's really fascinating to see, and then it's all hand harvested, and of course, it can be very expensive. And you see a lot of salts like the Maldon salt from England now, very, very popular. And it's these large flakes, which are not the natural way the salt is. It's the way they dry it that makes those really nice large flakes, right? So I brought a couple things with me today that we're going to have fun and taste with. And the first salt you see there, the pure white one that kind of looks like the Maldon salt, that's from Cyprus, and that's a Mediterranean sea salt. And just have some fun and pick up a couple crystals of it and put it in your mouth and crunch on it a little bit. One of the things I like about these salts that aren't just the simple, very fine table salt is the texture. As a food guy, right, I love the way things look, its appearance, the aroma if it has one, and as you'll see when we get into some of the flavored salts, they have aroma, right? The taste, of course, trust by taste, expand your palate, that's the big one, and then texture, right? This is really crunchy. Use less salt when you cook your food and put a little bit of this Mediterranean sea salt on top when you're done, right? Right. Nancy, what are some of the bad things about salt? We know there's good and bad, right? We need salt, correct? Our bodies need salt.
Right. We need salt for the balance. But most people eat way too much salt. The more salt you eat, the higher your blood pressure goes.
Right.
And so anyone who's over 50, anyone who's African American, anyone with diabetes is recommended to eat less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day. And what that means is in 1 teaspoon of salt, there's about 2,300 milligrams of salt, of sodium. So for most of us, we need to be eating less than 2/3 of a teaspoon of salt a day.
Right.
And if you eat out in restaurants, if you eat processed foods, you're getting 2 to 3 times that much every day.
There. Before you even go to these gourmet salts.
Right.
You're already doing. So keywords, eat less processed food.
Right.
Right. If you're eating in restaurants, eat in good restaurants, stay away from fast food.
Right. Cook at home.
Right. Cook at home more. And limit that amount of processed salt that you're bringing in, convenience foods, prepackaged foods, so that you can use more of these gourmet salts and just enjoy it more.
And just use the smallest amount that you need to add the flavoring that you need.
Sure. Our bodies need salt, right?
Right.
It is a healthy component to life.
Right. If you sweat a lot, people who work outside every day, they're sweating out salt, and they can get sick very quickly.
Sure.
So that's why you have, drinks like Gatorade. But no, we need salt.
Sure.
But just a small amount.
Just a small amount, right? So that first one we had, that was the Cyprus flake salt, and then next to that you see this that's the French gray salt, right? That's the fine gray one there. To me, it tastes much saltier. So here's an interesting thing. All salt is the same.
It does taste saltier.
Is the same amount of sodium by weight, okay, but not by volume. So we're all agreeing that tastes a little saltier. Maybe because when we took that little pinch in our fingers, we actually got more salt in our mouth than we did if we just grabbed a flake. What do you think? Seems like that might be.
I don't know. It seems
possible.
Concentrated.
It does seem like so this is the thing. So if you have a couple of different salts at home, you have fun and you experiment. Lose grandma's recipe that says a teaspoon of salt, because that's not necessarily true anymore. That was the classic Morton umbrella out of the canister. But if you're having some of these salts and having some fun with it, different flavors, different textures. Next is the black sea salt, also from Cyprus. And they make it black by using natural charcoal. And I'm not sure why. I'm going to just come right out and say that. I'm not sure why, other than for its dramatic appearance, right? And the charcoal also has trace minerals and things that are good in our body. But also seems like it's quite salty, doesn't it, in comparison to the first
one,
Cyprus salt, right? Interesting. So now you can have some fun and see what it does with food, right? I gave you a couple little tomatoes there and some cucumber slices. And you can see how the salt really enhances the food. And I think that's what salt, to me as a chef and a person that loves food, I remember when I was a mid-teenager and my dad had his heart attack. And thankfully he was okay from it. But the first thing the doctor told my mother was, no more salt. And this is the issue that I have with the medical field a little bit, that, we create this drama, no more salt. So now a family of 7 has no more salt in their food, right? 2 adults and 5 kids eating bland boiled potatoes and vegetables with no flavor anymore because my dad's doctor said no more salt. Crazy, right? Like everything in life, moderation, reduce, understand what your body needs and wants, what's good, what's bad, right? It's the same thing for anything, right? Bourbon in moderation. You know, salt in moderation, everything, you know, and that's the problem. We overdo, right? What the doctor should have said to my mother is make sure Warren gets no more processed salt, right? And that way, lessen the salt he uses at the table. But my mom just stopped cooking with salt. And I remember food was like horrible in those days. It just got boring, right?
Right. But if you look at, you know, if people eat canned foods like canned soups, those foods are so concentrated in sodium.
Right.
And it's very deceptive because that's where you have to read the food labels, because one can of soup you have to look at what a serving size is, because are you having one serving or two? How many servings are in the can?
Right.
And, you know, so processed soups can have a whole day's worth of sodium in one or half of one serving. So if you have 2 servings of soup, you're having your whole day's sodium in just that bowl of soup.
Sure. And you're right. That's a good point, because that's deceiving. Because I'm that guy that's going to eat that whole can of soup myself. And if you look at the nutritional label, it says 4 servings. 4 servings.
And then you look at the rectangle, it'll say like 700 milligrams of sodium per serving. So if you're having 3 servings of soup instead of just 1, you're having 2,100 milligrams of sodium, and you've already exceeded your daily allowance.
Right, just on your
sodium.
processed soup.
Just having that
Whereas
soup for lunch.
if you took the time to boil vegetable ends or chicken bones or something, make a nice stock, use your own vegetables, make your own soup, it's going to be tastier.
Right.
You did it yourself. You can control the amount of sodium.
Right.
Everybody wins.
Right,
Except
exactly.
Campbell's. Sorry, Campbell's. They don't sponsor the show anyway. But it's true, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So I've got a couple of flavored salts there for us to taste also, where they add other ingredients to the salt just to have some fun with it. And I've been having fun with these salts, cooking with less salt and then bringing salt to the table to enjoy right there at the table and having fun, because I have such a selection of them now. Having fun like, well, I'm going to take a little bit of this and put it on my asparagus and a little bit of this and put it on my steak or something. So the first salt I have for you there is also from Cyprus, and it's infused with citron, with lemon. And it's really bright and delicious. And the other night I had...
on vegetables, that would be fabulous.
I had asparagus, a little hollandaise sauce, which, you know, all the butter and egg and all that, you know, moderation. But I sprinkled a little bit of this on the asparagus.
Oh, I can taste
Wow. You can see how that little bit of saltiness and that nice lemon tang, how great that would work with vegetables. Yeah. So maybe eliminate the salt, the table salt when you're cooking the vegetable, right? And just let salt be a finishing. These are finishing salts. You wouldn't add any of these salts in the cooking process.
No.
These are things you do at the table.
Oh, but for, you know, roasting a tray of vegetables and finishing it with this and having a little bit of this.
Right? Sure.
Yep.
Sure.
You know, when I was up at my mother's house recently, my one of my grandmother's kitchen things that she had, and it was kind of tucked away in a shelf, and I was doing some cleaning, I pulled it out, and it was a little salt dish that my grandmother had. It was a little tiny, about 1 inch, smaller than, just a small little 1 inch glass, beautiful glass dish that you would put salt in.
Sometimes a little spoon or something.
And a tiny little spoon.
Right.
Tiny. So again, you know, our ancestors knew, you know, our family knew what to do. It was just when the processing of food happened.
During the processed food rage of the 60s and 70s, we kind of lost all that,
lost
right?
It. Right.
Absolutely. Let's get it back, right? That's what we're about here today. So the next salt has a little bit of jalapeno pepper infused in it.
Oh, my favorite.
I don't know how spicy it is. I haven't tasted it yet.
Let's go.
I'm excited.
Ooh, and you get a nice little bit of heat with that, as well as a nice pepper flavor. Boy, that one I want to sprinkle on, you know, just some fresh vegetables, a nice fresh vegetable salad. Or, you know, if you enjoy tacos, fish, meat, chicken, or veggie tacos, and you do a nice little cilantro with it and some crunchy carrots and cucumbers on top, and a little bit of that on there would be nice, right?
Or brown rice with cilantro, and brown rice and quinoa with cilantro with that.
Absolutely. Really flavorful. And the last one I have for you there is a Carolina hickory smoked salt.
A lot of good foods coming out of the Carolinas, Chef Michael.
I love the Carolinas. A lot of good bourbons and beer coming out of the Carolinas too. That's really delicious. So the other night, the 2 salts that I enjoyed with my steak, sorry, Nancy, my vegan friend Nancy, with my steak, I enjoyed a little bit of this hickory smoked salt after I sliced it, right? Just sprinkled a little bit of that on the surface, and then the little Cyprus lemon salt on the vegetables. Really, really good. Dane, did you have a favorite out of all these? They're kind of fun, huh?
I really like that jalapeno one.
Great.
Yeah, the little bit of a the little bit of bite to it was fantastic.
But it also had a nice pepper flavor too, which was exciting. It wasn't just heat.
Yeah,
it wasn't like salt and pepper
it
right
was like
into
the
the mixture.
of the salty flavor, the heat, and like the peppery flavor just really helped to enhance it.
Right.
You know?
Great. So it's something to have fun with.
Absolutely.
Well, Nancy, thanks for joining me on the show today, talking about salt.
Always
It's
fun.
always a pleasure to have you,
Always
Nancy.
fun.
Really great.
Thank you.
Dane Salmons, nice to have you also.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for joining us on the show, talking about salt.
Glad to be here.
And we'll see you again soon for more Food Space.